visit at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This marks his first trip to India since the war in Ukraine began. The visit aims to reaffirm the long-standing strategic partnership amid US pressures, including sanctions and tariffs on Indian purchases of Russian energy. Accompanied by Defense Minister Andrei Bolosov and a business delegation, Putin will focus on elevating bilateral ties in energy, defense, trade and technology. Energy cooperation is a cornerstone of the summit, driven by Russia's need to sustain exports under sanctions and India's quest for affordable, reliable supplies. Now, India's crude imports are set to hit a 3-year low this month after the tightening of sanctions on Russia that coincide with its growing purchases of US oil and gas. Now, let us take a look at what Russia and India want from each other when it comes to trade in energy. Remember that energy trade is forming the cornerstone of this entire summit that we are expecting to start tomorrow. Now, India-Russia energy trade, what India actually needs from Russia. India seeks a steady supply of discounted Urals grade oil to protect consumers from price volatility and maintain refining profitability. So, India is looking at a stable supply and it is also looking at lower prices so that it does not go on towards the consumers, the rising prices. Also, India requires Russian support on new nuclear reactors, including small modular reactors and fuel supply for expanding its civil nuclear program. India is looking at expanding its broader civil nuclear program, and in that sector, it is looking forward to Russian imports in the energy sector. Also, what Russia now needs from India in the energy sector, Moscow wants India to maintain higher purchases after some Indian refineries stopped imports under sanctions pressure. Now, remember, like we have been talking to you, this has been at a 3-year low, the oil imports for India from Russia, and this is because of the US sanctions that have been in place. So, Russia will want that India keeps its imports steady. Also, Moscow actually needs India's continued imports to offset sanctions on Rosneft and Lukoil and to sustain its energy revenue flows. Now, remember, these are the two companies that were actually sanctioned by the US. So, India had to stop purchases from them. Now, Russia will look at, in fact, more imports if India is actually wanting from other areas so that this revenue is maintained. So, this is what it comes to when it comes to trade in energy between India and Russia. And to discuss this further, I have Shruti Das Gupta, Foreign Affairs expert, who is joining us on the broadcast. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us. When we are looking at India, Russia and the field of energy and the field of oil and trade exports, it looks like because US has actually sanctioned India on because we were buying Russian oil, but India has stood its ground. It has stayed firm. It has stated that no matter what pressures come on us, we will make sure that we stay true and we get those low price fuels that we require, because that's the need of our economy, that's our national policy. We will do and go forward with it. Also, when we are looking at the nuclear front, ma'am, we are looking at more cooperation in that sector. So, could you help us, give that some perspective to that issue?
Well, the Putin's visit to India coincides with our annual Russia-India trade cooperation meetings, which is very nice because then we can iron out all the smaller and bigger details of it. As far as the crude is concerned, it was at its peak at 40% of what India was importing was coming from Russia earlier this year till July. Now it has tapered off to 35%. Some of that tapering off is also because a large amount of Russian energy infrastructure has been targeted by Ukrainian missiles. So that does show us that the decline may not just be because of the sanctions, although they do play a large part of how the independent buyers, the private companies are reacting to the pressures of to the Indian economy. Now, we have secured discounted prices. More discounts are coming through. We have our trade has jumped from to 70 billion that was for this year, and we are expecting 100 billion to reach by the 2030. So our targets are pretty set. We know what we want from Russia. We are setting up payment modules which will help us bypass the international trading volume. We want rupee was through trading accounts that we want to set up with Russia so that transactions are easier. We are also facing as for the latest report in the Black Sea that Indian trailers that are carrying Russian crude are facing Ukrainian attacks. So that is also going to be part of our oil and crudes related conversation, whether further cooperation can be protected and how long, hence the peace in Ukraine will also play a part in the conversation that India has with Russia. We continue to maintain our strategic autonomy, and on these particular issues, we do not bow to sanctions and tariffs, because it is not us that is waging the war. It is Europe and NATO that are waging the war. I do not understand why Germany and Hungary and all the other nations can get away by buying Russian oil while India has to face sanctions. So that this is part of the larger international conversation that needs to be had, that why India is supposed to pay a price for being partners with Russia, whereas the other European nations heavily dependent on Russian crude are continued to given a gray zone of free from sanction zone just because they need it more. So that is going to be a conversation that will be part of what Russia and India get. Now, Russia is helping us with our nuclear civil programs as well. It is helping us in Tamil Nadu and KNPP, where the first Unit 1 and Unit 2 are already operational. Unit 3 is in pre-startup phase. Unit 4, 5, and 6 are under construction, and we are depending on the Russian technology and guidance to help us through this project. There are smaller reactors that we are looking at. We understand that small modular reactors is something which is a potential that India can develop, and Russia can play a key role in something like that. And we hope that India would want that 6,000 megawatt plant from Tamil Nadu can change a lot in India's energy sector. And so we hope that this is also part of the general conversation and understanding of the world, that India and Russia as trade partners go not just in buying of defense, although 70% of what India's defense, Indian defense, indigenous defense is dependent on Russian intelligence and technology trade. So we hope that memorandum of understandings that are, for thorium from Maharashtra, and memorandum of understandings for other equipment, second sightings, and all of that is going to come forth. And there's a broader cooperation that can be had with Russia, and India will hopefully put its own interests before any other sanction.
Absolutely. I think that's the way to go forward. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us on the broadcast. That's it from us on this bulletin. We'll see you after this commercial.